Hi, good evening to everyone, and welcome to the 50th Leadership Leaves lecture by Ajoy Chawla. Ajoy is currently the Chief Executive Officer of Titan's Jewellery business that houses iconic brands such as Tanishq, Mia, Zoe, and Carrot Lane. Prior to this role, he was responsible for strategy and new business incubation at Titan for 5 years and was tasked with nurturing and launching Titan's new businesses, fragrances, brand skin, and Indian ethnic wear, women's wear retail brand Taniana. As strategy head, he supported the MD in developing and managing corporate strategy and provided advisory support to CXOs for division strategies. Ajay has also led watch business within Titan, responsible for driving P&L of domestic and international businesses Titan business unit. His role included expansion into Asia while profitably growing the business, managing a portfolio of product brands Titan, Raga, Xylis, Zoop, etc., and the retail brand World of Titan, India's largest chain of specialty watch stores. He has lived the life of an entrepreneur. Besides launching Skin and Taniera, he has also led successful brands and incubating them for the businesses within Titan, including Helios, a multi-brand premium retail chain, Fast Act sunglasses, Titan accessories, licensed brands, and Titan Eye Plus. As a leader, Ajoy has led large and diverse teams across geographies, acting as a mentor for many people in his team and for many managers within the Titan Group. Welcome to this leadership lecture, Ajay. And we have the pleasure of having Anish Krishna, the president and the CEO of TimesPro, who would be having a fireside chat with Ajoy Chawla this evening. Anish is a graduate of the Asian Institute of Management, Manila, Philippines, and is also a member of the governing body of Vantage University. He took over as the CEO of TimesPro in 2015, and since then he has led the rapid growth and scaling of the company in higher education. Over to you, Anish.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Chaudhary, and thank you so much, Ajoy, for being with us today on the 50th occasion of the Leadership Levers lecture series. We at TimesPro are particularly privileged to have someone who has built such a sterling brand and along the lines of Titan, which is the stuff of corporate legend in India, and especially building Tanishq in a category where an organized player we could not foresee an organized player succeeding the way Tanishq has. So we look forward as students, as executives at TimesPro, to learn from your journey and from your career.
Hi, thanks, Anish. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you. And thanks, Dr. Nagendra.
Pleasure.
So Ajoy, with your concurrence, I'd like to structure this into three distinct segments in the time that we have. We have about 40 minutes and we have an eager audience waiting to ask you questions later. So we would look at three distinct segments, Ajoy. So the first one being the leadership levers that you have seen through your career. It's been a long and illustrious career of 30 years at Titan and Tanishq. The second are what are the crucibles that you have seen of business leadership and how they have shaped your thinking through this wonderful career. And the last, but not the least, is how you're seeing leadership lessons for Gen Zers and millennials who have increasingly come to dominate our workforces nowadays. And this is a particular topic of interest for a lot of those Gen Zers who are watching us today. So if that's all right, Ajoy, I'll move forward then, with the first segment. Ajoy, the leadership levers that someone like you has seen would be the stuff of case studies and books. You've been a career Tata veteran with about 30 years wearing different hats in Titan and currently as CEO of the Jewellery Division. Now, Ajoy, we live in an era where words like gig economy, startup culture, these are the words that are popular, and these are the very concepts of, career, longevity, loyalty. These are all being fundamentally debated as we speak amongst our young employees, as we see. Tell us a little bit about your career journey and your perspective on what a career would mean for a young person today.
I think today's generation looks at life very differently from perhaps when I joined Tata's and the Titan company. So I think I can only share what has worked for me. Uh, it for some very fuzzy reasons from my institute, from IMCAL, I was enamored by joining the Tata group, as a Tata Administrative Services officer. Even though there were other very respectable names, many MNCs and some very good finance institutions, etc., which used to come to IMCAL. I guess it was the pride and sheer satisfaction of working with a very pioneering group like the Tata Group that kind of drew me towards it. Not just because of the trust it holds with so many people, but a truly genuine group with a very pioneering multi-stakeholder focus, and I think that's what attracted me to the group. And within that, of course, Titan as an organization, when I joined it, it was hardly 3-4 years old. I joined in 1991. It was about 4-year-old organization. It was young, very dynamic, very innovative, vibrant, informal, and that it has retained many of those characteristics. Also, I think what has worked for me, my stint in Titan has been pretty long. It's like 31 years out of the 32 years has been Titan across, of course, different categories. I've worked in watches, eyewear, fragrances, saris, and now jewelry. So pretty much all the categories. And also I've worked across different functions between sales to finance to supply chain, retail, marketing, and so on. So it's been a very, and of course different geographies. But what has really drawn me to Titan and kept me here is, besides the culture that it has of being fairly non-hierarchical, informal, with a lot of freedom to experiment, it also is to do with products and brands which are in the lifestyle space. It is about self-expression. Almost every product category of ours is driven by design. So there's a lot of creativity and there's a lot of value creation, and products which are in a way brand driven. And therefore, it enables people to express themselves. So for me, it's very important that I connect with the product category that I'm working with. It should attract me, it should excite me. I should spend time looking and learning at it and learning with it. And if it's something fuzzy, intangible, abstract, it wouldn't work for me. But in terms of a career, if I were to reflect on my journey, I think the first 7-8 years was about largely individual contribution with small teams, mostly about delivering results. I think that's how, and I think it was that time which you carry forward all the learnings from business school and say, how does one build credibility? As a professional, you have to lead yourself. You need to demonstrate commitment. You need to demonstrate a willingness to put pen to paper, or dive deep into the topic. You need to leverage the learning that a business school gives you in terms of being able to see the big picture, but yet not get caught in the air and be grounded. I think so. It was all about leading yourself, leading with results. In the next 10 years or so, I had the fortune of being able to kind of lead different functions. It could be retail, it could be channel management, it was sales, it was supply chain, it was incubating some new businesses like sunglasses, etc. Here it was both about leading, of course, a bunch of people, a team, but they were all, most of them were individual contributors or early managers, not very large teams, moderate sized teams. But a lot of it was also about leading the business and figuring out what is the improvement one can bring about, what is the change one can bring about. So it was a bit of, and of course, you always need to lead, you have to deliver results. So results remains as a foundation, but these layers got added up. In my next leg of about the next 10 years or so, I got the opportunity to work with large teams, in which, let's say, in one of the roles where I was leading the Titan brand, as a business head, it had about 200 people in the field, in marketing, in sales, in design, in product. And there it was about leading other managers and leaders who in turn led teams. So that brings very different skills to the forefront. Of course, you need to still, um, lead with results, lead with new ways to do business or improvement in business. But here it was about leading leaders or leading managers who had to lead other people. And it therefore also meant setting the culture, aligning a large team towards common goals, keeping them, engaged with the challenges on hand, etc., etc. And in the last few years, as in terms of either leading new categories or leading an industry in jewelry, for example, it's a very large operation, very scaled play. Here, I would say it's been about setting the culture in the organization, ensuring that we are gripped with the opportunities that are ahead of us, especially if I were to look at jewelry, it's a huge opportunity, and ensuring that the leaders whom I'm leading are in turn, nurturing and developing future leaders. So it's really a lot about leadership of people, leadership of industry and category. And of course, you still need to deliver results, whether quarterly or yearly. Yeah, so it's if I were to summarize, therefore, it's been a fabulous journey. And I think leadership and careers both are long-term journeys. They are not a sprint, they are marathons, and you need to kind of enjoy the journey as you go along.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more, Ajoy. And it's really the marathon thought process that one really wishes to inculcate in today's managers. You alluded to IIM Cal a lot during your response, and I'm curious. I mean, this is also an era where the fundamental role of business schools is being questioned. We respect IIM Calcutta a lot. TimesPro is a partner. Delivers a lot of its executive education programs. So tell us a little bit about how your days on the Joka campus, your interactions as a young person on the Joka campus, how did it shape your thinking and the way you thought about performance, leadership, and your subsequent career? How did that experience shape it?
So I think business schools, and especially, I can say about IIM, Cal, and most of the other IIMs, what they do is two or three things. One is you get exposed to a whole new world of, excellence in terms of people and students and peer group and profs who come from very different parts of the country, and most of them are toppers and most of them are, really bright folks who come from across. And sometimes you feel, oops, do you think I can manage out here? But I think peer learning and sheer brilliance of people around you gives you a completely new exposure. The second piece that most business schools do is inject a large dose of ambition in every person who walks in. I don't think I had any clue as to what I wanted when I got in, but pretty much in the first 1 year, you start seeing people getting placed and you hear, what people want to do, what your seniors are hoping to achieve, and you're part of the placement process, helping them. And then you you discover this whole world of ambition, which kind of opens up in front of you. At least for me, it did. And the third thing that, of course, a business school does is, by virtue of the people you interact with, as well as the discipline that you go through, I think you get a pretty much 360 view of how businesses and organizations work. As a person with no work experience, it is still very theoretical, but nevertheless, you get to see the big picture. And as soon as we kind of step into any workplace, you're able to relate whatever one is doing to how it's possibly adding in value creation or value delivery. I think so. I think it's. I think IMC are fun days and very fond memories of all the lovely times we had. You make friends for life. Of course, you build networks for life. I think more than anything else, these are people whom you can bank upon, lean upon, learn from as we go along. So I think there's simply too many things that an institute contributes, and we don't even realize it. We take it for granted. And only when you really start putting down, okay, my God, I've got so much from this institute. So one has to be thankful, and of course, one has to be thankful to all the profs who taught us there so patiently, even though we didn't attend their classes and so on. But they were very nice to us. Yeah.
That's
Fond memories.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I mean, that we all relate back to what our campuses taught us, and what the alumni network still mean to us. Ajoy, moving forward, in one of your blogs, I think it was titled "Who Do We Work For?" I think you had really nicely expounded about the sense of identity that the workplace gives you, and you'd mentioned about how natural it is to belong to an organization. And I think the Tata Group being the epitome of loyalty and credibility and employee value systems and so on. Tell us a little bit about how your stint at Tata, Titan, and now at Tanishq, the Jewellery Division, has defined and shaped your identity as a leader and as a professional and as a human being.
Yeah, I touched a little bit about it as to what attracted me to the Tata Group, and I think there is a lot of pride in belonging to the Tata Group. It's always been, it's always believed in the fact that what is good for the community and the country is good for the organization and for business. So connecting these two goods together truly makes it great. I think it's a rare blend of professionalism and long-term relationship orientation, partnering, and it's a very authentic, wholesome kind of a place to be in. The leaders out there have been iconic. I mean, from JRD Tata, who really espoused the idea of leadership with affection, or Mr. Ratan Tata, who kind of went about, in a way, transforming the group. We joined pretty much when Mr. Tata had taken over as the chairman of the group. He took over in around 1991. And we could see that in a structured, systematic manner, he was trying to make the group more professional and, in a way, codify the values of the group, as well as directing it in a formal way towards business excellence. I think there's a lot of transformative things that one learned from there. Within Titan, of course, and of course, there were many other leaders, but I'm just touching upon, I mean, there was Mr. Krishna Kumar, who recently passed away, a terrific leader, hands-on, and, very inspiring kind of a personality. Mr. Desai, a founder of Titan, who was such an aesthete, I would call him, and Oxford educated, and he brought in a whole world of, not so much about management as much about literature, history, and a diversity of knowledge and learning, which is very rare. But I've had the fortune of working with some great leaders like Bhaskar Bhatt, who's been my boss for a long time, and he continues to be on the board of Titan as well as Tata Sons and several other companies. I think his intense customer orientation, partnership building, and inspiring or encouraging people to, pursue excellence has been something which I have gained a lot from, and very wise leader. And of course, I'm inspired also by Mr. Chandra. I think he's a marathoner and terrific bandwidth and energy for managing a very large portfolio of businesses, whether in TCS or now. In fact, many of us, I'm quite inspired, and in fact, I've also taken up to half marathons, etc., but not very long back, maybe about 8-10 years ago. My current role model is also our MD, Mr. C.K. Venkatraman, whom I took over from the jewelry business, and he's now the head of the company. There is, he brings that simplicity and preciseness and succinct approach to business. Everything can be simplified. And when things are simple, the organization stays focused. I think, be it Harish Bhatt, another senior leader of the Tata Group, whom I worked, who I had the privilege to work with, a man from whom I learned what it is to be, how to learn execution excellence, how to run execution. At the same time, with his brightness, he was amongst the most humble leaders I've come across. He's pretty much like the monk who sold his Ferrari, which Robin Sharma talks about. So yes, you asked me about the group and Titan. I chose to talk about some icons because ultimately we learn from role models.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it is people who make up the organization and the group.
Yeah.
And these are people who inspire you. At least they've inspired me. And to me, leadership has emerged as imbibing some of their qualities. And whatever it has resulted in, it's a journey, and therefore you keep picking up something and you keep getting inspired by something, and that's how we progress on the journey. And for me, it's been a journey of learning from these legendary role models.
No, absolutely. I think the Tata Group has thrown up so many fantastic icons who not just stood for fantastic business results, but also really pointed to the true north when it comes to value systems. And I mean, I can think of so many fantastic leaders from the Tisco and Telco days to what Mr. Ratan Tata has done with Tata Motors, and so many other, and what Mr. Chandra has done with TCS, and now what's happening in the overall group. It's really a fantastic journey, and I really envy you for being for having a window seat to that kind of leadership and that kind of value systems that you've been privy to. I'll move, Ajoy, to the second segment of our conversation today, which is perhaps going to be a really meaty subject from a leadership standpoint, and this is about the crucibles that shape business leaders and business leadership. So there was an HBR classic that appeared a while ago called The Crucibles of Leadership, and this is by Thomas in September 2002. And it defines a crucible as a transformative experience through which an individual comes to a new or an altered sense of identity. And it could be, trial by fire. It could be a new experience, a completely new set of variables that you have to deal with. So tell us a little bit about some of these transformative experiences that no doubt you have been through in your journey from early career to functional leader to now as a general manager and as a CEO at Tanishq and Titan.
Yeah, I'll touch upon two or three, and they're in a way linked eventually to some of the other questions that I'm sure you would have in mind. I'll pick up the threads from a time when I was running a scale business in the Titan watches business. I used to look after the Titan business unit, and it was pretty much the most critical role within the watch division, because Titan used to account for about 2/3 of the top line and 3/4 of the bottom line of the watches division. And it also had many other sub brands to it, etc. Now, as part of that role, I was used to leading a large team. It was about 1,100 crore business, making very good profits, and it's a very responsible role. And sometimes the role that one plays, you take it too seriously. You start almost building an identity as if that is the main thing in your life that you need to do. You're pretty much thinking it's an important role. As a young manager and as a leader, I felt I have to be at grips with it. I used to be at it fully all the time, probably also a bit, keyed up and totally involved, 24/7 kind of a thing. And somewhere I felt over a period of time that while achievement and results were respected, and as a professional I was respected, my team also I felt were very happy and excited by what they were doing. I felt I was having some question marks on how much I was able to influence and how much I was able to build a sense of collaboration amongst my peer group and my and also influence my boss. And in fact, it used to leave me a little perplexed as to, why is it that I don't enjoy that kind of friendship with the peer group that I would love to, And then when I had a chance, I had gone to Harvard, thanks to the company. It sponsored me for advanced management program in 2010. And we used to keep doing 360, and that 360 feedback came at an opportune time. I had a chance of a specialized counselor also there. And when we looked at the 360, there was some amount of dissonance it created me. I saw I felt, okay, why is it that my peer group and my bosses are not seeing me as affable as I probably, see myself with my friends and with other people? That got me thinking and really bothered me a lot. And I remember the counselor there saying, we never know with perceptions. And it is always good to examine your own intention and to really understand where people are coming from and where you're coming from. Is the impact that you're creating, if it is not what you want, what's missing? You have to reflect deeply about it. And I think that was a big reveal to me, because I realized I don't want to be a leader who's just a high achiever, but also somebody who has high degree of affiliation and high degree of influence. And I realized that I need to change something to ensure that others feel included. It's I might be not doing it for myself, but it may be coming across that way. So my takeaway from there was, we tend to take our roles very seriously, and the role sometimes takes over your very self. Okay, and some genuine, spontaneous, vulnerable part of you needs to also break through, because that's what people connect with. That's what people relate to. Thereafter, I had an interesting, after I played that role for several years and I'd come back from Harvard and continued, I then I took a sabbatical break because I wanted to kind of explore different things. I did many different things in the sabbatical. And after I came back in to the organization, I came in as a chief strategy officer. And thereafter, I was told, hey, listen, we've got to incubate these new businesses, which is, one was perfumes, which was doing about 3-4 crores. We need to take it to scale. And the other one was we had yet to incubate, which was the sari business, which we later on christened as Indian ethnic wear. And it became brand Tanaira. Now, here I was, having handled a large team of 200 people, 1,200 crores, and now, starting from zero. And don't even know if these businesses would make sense. Would they succeed at all? And in fact, to be honest, when it, not only are you starting with zero top line, but negative bottom lines, because you need to really invest in these businesses. And the other piece that struck me is that, I wasn't very confident whether the sari business would make sense for Titan. As a strategy head, I also started thinking, we get caught up in frameworks. And I know I wasn't convinced. I said, is this the right thing we're doing? So amidst all this doubt, I had to start on, and from being a very significant profit contributor to an important division like watches, pretty much in the mainstream, to becoming insignificant, small
startup,
perhaps a hobby within the Titan group. Leading a very small team initially of 5 or 6 people, and you had to create the entire team. And and with doubts whether it'll work. And thereafter, I think we went about creating that whole business, and especially the sari business. I must say, the more one got into it, the more one discovered a whole world of richness, Indian textile heritage. Pretty much, it was a discovery of India when you visited all these different, every state, every district almost had a different weaving technique and some heritage. So it was a whole world by itself. I also remember our MD Bhaskar telling me and the team that, you guys should behave like startups. You are like, you should experiment. You should not have fear of failure. You should fail fast to learn faster, and just be fresh at whatever you do. Don't worry about scale. Don't worry about anything. Just go out there and explore. And that's what gave me the courage to tell our team that, we are not just a small startup trying to do something on the side in Titan, but we are actually creating the next horizon of growth. And we need to learn, because we didn't really know much. So we had to bring in external expertise. We had to draw upon internal expertise from within within Titan, because there were many people from different businesses who taught us a lot of things. And the big thing that I learned is that if you want this new startup to nurture into something which is going to be an enduring brand and an enduring business, the rest of the organization should also adopt it. So therefore, don't operate aloof, isolated, but actually bring them in, but yet bring in freshness from external world. And in a way, even make the small successes seem like it's the organization success, not just the team success. And I must tell you, I have the happiest memories of working with that team. Absolutely young and vibrant team, energetic, always ready to, very passionate about the product. I loved the sari product. I never knew I could love a product which I had no connection with other than seeing mother wear saris. And it has something to it. I think that is a very special journey. And I realized that my identity is not equal to the size of turnover you manage. My identity is the value creation that I'm able to bring in and inspire the team to think differently. I was certainly not the expert. The team was the expert. And along with the team, we all learned together. So the identity shifted from being a hands-on leader to becoming a nurturer. So these are two very different episodes. And thereafter, out of the blue, I was suddenly told to take on the jewelry business. I remember the budgeted top line for Tanaira was some 45 crores in that particular year. And as soon as I got into jewelry, that was the average daily sales update that used to come. So, so it was a completely different mindset. And it's a very large business it had already become a great brand, great business. It was 80% of the company's top line, bottom line, and too big a business, too large a responsibility that one it couldn't even stutter or stumble. Because if that happened, the entire organization would kind of fall. So a lot of dependence and with a very large ecosystem. Luckily, I got some time to get into it, so I could immerse myself. I spent about almost 4 months literally learning from, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 people one-on-one about the business, from vendor partners, from manufacturing partners, from franchisees, from our team members, because I really needed to develop an understanding, and I was coming in cold. Other than the fact that I've looked at other businesses, I had no background in jewelry. So to me, what that brought in was that learning can happen if you're willing to roll up your sleeves, dive into it, dig deep into your understanding, and really put pen to paper. I must have, I think, consumed 2 big books writing based on the one-on-ones and trying to understand what's working well, what can be done better, what can be different, and built a personal conviction around this category and industry. So I don't know if these are all different crucibles, but each of them stretched me in very different ways. And suddenly, in this role, I had to take it on. And within 6 months, we had COVID, and we had several crises. And the ecosystem of 25,000 people, including the weavers, the karigars who work for us in the jewelry vendor ecosystem, our 9,000 frontline staff, some of them on our roles, some of them on the franchisee roles. There was a whole ecosystem of 25,000 people one had to ensure is safe, with total ambiguity as to when are we likely to ever, see the end of this. So I think it was, as some of my bosses also called, baptism by fire. And each of these 3 different episodes have in a way shaped my identity and thinking, and changed the way I look at business, people, and leadership.
That was beautifully articulated. Thank you. And while you were talking, I was reflecting on the number of crucibles that you had the opportunity to be placed in within the same company. And it's probably something that most of us experience over multiple stints in multiple companies, and you got it all as part of one company relationship. And it's fantastic how you managed it and how you just articulated it. One of the tensions, Ajoy, that most of us as leaders have to manage is the tension between the performance goals and the performance orientation on the one hand, and the people goals and the empathy and all of the the soft skills that one has to master as a leader. And there's been a lot of research and a lot of lip service that has been paid to the role of empathy in the creation of a well-rounded leader. I wonder if you have a view on it and how you balance between your performance orientation and your soft persona as a leader.
Yeah, it's a tough one. They very often seem to come at cross purposes, people and task orientation, the most classic. But I must tell you that I talked about the first crucible where I figured that I wanted to also build influence and affiliation along with achievement. I could actually empathize with the people and my peer group only after I took on the role where I had to start from scratch, from zero. So to be honest, I never really understood what they might have felt until I became a nobody, relatively. Nobody as in terms of size of office, business,
Turnover.
turnover, not really. And I recognize that how only when you're in somebody's shoes can you be empathy. Can you feel empathy? That's the definition of empathy. Um, and therefore, one has to tread lightly. The more responsible one is, the bigger the responsibility, the lighter one must tread. And that has like stayed, very strongly with me as I'm currently running the jewelry business, because we are a conglomerate of brands and businesses in the company. It doesn't matter size of turnover. It's actually the beauty and specialness of each brand that matters. And each business is different. The category size is different. So I think empathy has to be felt. You can't suddenly tell somebody to be empathy. You have to be in the other person's shoes to recognize it. And I guess that's what life does. It puts us in all kinds of different situations. But yes, I would say that what empathy does, and I'll take three different stakeholders. For example, when it comes to your peer group and other colleagues, it enables to build affiliation. It enables to build influence, and influence is so important as a leader. I can't say more about it. I think if you have influence, achievement will follow. Everything else will follow, because we can't really direct people to, and certainly not the Gen Z and the Gen Y, or you need to influence them. The second thing that it does is, empathy enables you to be non-judgmental. When we judge people, we are actually putting them off, and we are cutting down our approachability. So when people, if my team has to feel comfortable to talk to me and even tell me bad news, so that we can figure out solution and engage and get commitment from the team, I have to be approachable, and I can only be approachable if I'm non-judgmental. And that can only come from empathy. Empathy with partners, business, and we work with 100 vendor partners and 250 franchisees approximately. So we have to build a climate of deep trust with each other, because it's all about long-term and win-win. And it cannot come if there is no empathy to what the other person is going through. It is never a win-loss. If it's win-loss, it's short-term, for sure.
Sure.
But therefore, building, how to say, deep trust is a leadership agenda, and ensuring that everybody in the organization follows that. So empathy, I cannot emphasize, more, because in every aspect, empathy with the community and other stakeholders, because you can't work in isolation. So to me, the biggest qualities of a leader is empathy. Task orientation is needed, but that is early on in the foundation. Call it more foundational. Leading results, yes, you always have to deliver results, but without empathy, you can never become a leader. So these are my thoughts around this entire topic, and I think influence and affiliation take over the larger amount of they take precedence, and results will follow. It's almost like a lag indicator. It may sometimes it may go up and down, but that bit, I think we all develop those subconscious muscles, and we are able to that's a lower level skill, I would say.
Yeah, and I think the word influence kind of captures it. It's a great way of articulating empathy as well as performance orientation. So I think that's the word that we'll carry away from your Crucibles part of the conversation.
Yeah.
You already alluded to the Gen Z and the millennials, Ajoy. So we are moving into the final leg of our conversation.
Yeah.
How do you see managing the new generation? There is a sense of seeking there. There is a sense of while there is purposeful pursuit, but there is also a rejection of popular tropes of working. There is a emphasis on work-life balance. There is a lot of distraction that various social media and entertainment vehicles are bringing their way. How do you look at it, and how do you look at do you even require to look at it differently when you're managing a Gen Z audience? What's your take on it?
No, it's true. Every generation has some fundamental truths when they are growing up. Our generation perhaps grew up at a time when our parents were still battling insecurity. Jobs for life was a value, and managing or minimizing risk. I would say, at least our generation, we looked at minimizing risk because perhaps we didn't come from the same sense of security or abundance. Maybe we came from some paucity, sense. But I think when I look at Gen Z and maybe Gen Y, millennials are kind of in between. They're halfway here and there. But certainly, I think Gen Z, Gen Y, and some millennials, I could see that they come from a sense of no insecurity. There is abundance. As opposed to minimizing risk, they are looking at maximizing experiences and maximizing their life, self-expression. I think self-expression is very, very important. And therefore, the work-life balance and everything it's one continuum. It's not only about work, it's also about leading a full life. Along with that comes, because of technology distraction, there's this fear of missing out. So they want to maximize their life and they don't want to miss out. So there's FOMO is big. And consequently, distraction also follows. So that's their conflict and their tension that they go through. And therefore, yes, I think it's important to kind of keep that in mind when we are dealing with that generation. And the conversations there may be very different from the conversations or the motivations when people they are looking for more challenges. They're looking for, many times they're in a hurry to grow, They want vertical growth. Whereas learning or any role which seems like a lateral role is almost seen like,
the demotion.
Yeah, it's so I think there are differences, and yes, you have to modulate your work with them. Right. But they can be a huge source of energy. So once I think we are able to fuel their passion through purpose or through something which really gets them, it doesn't matter. It's a weekend, they'll put in their hours, they'll do it. I've seen that in the era. I think people used to be, doing the most inane work because they knew something big they were creating. They were part of creating something big. So yeah, it requires a different, let's say, muscle and different ambidextrous leadership to be able to manage different generations.
Brilliant. Ajoy, we constantly are grappling with the problem of skilling in our country and in our workplace. And I think, there is a problem of underskilling of fresh entrants. There is a problem of upskilling that is required amongst middle managers and also, amongst leaders, be it in technology, be it in leadership, and so on. How do you and Titan look at upskilling of your workforce? What do you offer to your employees, and how do you really solve for the problem of L&D, as you put it?
Yeah, I think firstly, the world is changing at a more rapid pace. It's a VUCA world also, not just rapidly changing, it's volatile. Many things are going on. Pandemic has brought a completely different set of challenges. So it's important that, people at all levels kind of adapt and learn new skills, develop new muscles. And technology itself throws up completely new kind of ways of working. So we have a fairly elaborate L&D function as well as a whole program. and it's got tiered, like from emerging leaders to young leaders to senior leadership and top management, etc. We also have a whole functional skills kind of. But yeah, I think L&D is that subject which, whatever you do is not enough, especially in large organizations. And therefore, we have to be constantly looking out. Our L&D function is led within the people function. We also have L&D in terms of training, which is very functional for the 8,000, 9,000 odd. 8,000 is within the jewelry, but if I add all the divisions, maybe a 10, 11,000 strong retail frontline force,
right,
who are dealing with customers, whether they are on our roles or franchise role, doesn't matter. We have specific training for them, and within that there are graded learning. So yeah, there is another set of learning and training which is happening in our manufacturing and product development and category mastery. So that is functional skills relevant to that industry, whether it is eyewear or it is jewelry or it is watches, horology, or so on and so forth. So that's, and these are all and engineering skills, etc. So these are two very strong value creation functions for us. And off late, there is also this whole world of digital and IT and digital, including mobility commerce or including AI or machine learning, etc. Yeah, and I forgot another one, which is on design. We take a lot of people from the design world and then upskilling them. Most of it is through exposure because they come well groomed from the design institutes, but they really need to, in our case, they go for international fairs, and then they also do cross category projects between watches or jewelry or handbags or saris or so on and so forth. So yeah, it's a very large set of things, and we do look at upskilling and skilling. In fact, that's what keeps the competitive advantage. Our competitive advantage is in really capabilities. Capacity and everything else can be copied. Capability is difficult to copy.
Fantastic. I'm sure my colleagues in the corporate training division are taking furious notes, and you'll hear from us very, very soon, Ajoy. But Ajoy, thank you for a fascinating conversation today. As a parting question, if I may, Ajoy, you had this sterling career. You built these wonderful brands, and you've really sort of written case studies of how to manage companies in tough markets. What would you like your colleagues and all of those here and in the general population to remember Ajoy Chawla's legacy as? What is that one thing that you would like to be remembered by?
Legacy is a very big word. I think I'm not sure if I'm there, but there are two or three things which are passionate to me. One is, I think every person should be, and I would love to be, a lifelong learner. Learning, for that you need to be curious and humble. And therefore, being a lifelong learner is something which I truly cherish. I wish people always remember me this way. The other big thing is that as a leader, the biggest job of a leader, I had attended a program long back in TMTC, and Dr. Jim Toole, I think he was one of the profs who had taught us there. He said the role of a leader is simple. You have to just create more leaders. So I think if I can have played a role in enabling people to nudge along or travel a little faster on their leadership journey, that would be time well spent. And the third piece, which I'm truly moved and inspired by, is what Mr. J.R.D. Tata and later on Bhaskar, but through his role modeling, had always provided, is leading with affection. If I can be remembered as somebody who led with affection, I would think life well lived within the Tata Group or within Titan.
Fantastic, Ajoy, and thank you for such an articulate and such an endearing session, I'd say, where you've talked about such a range of things. It resonates with us at TimesPro, both as an education provider as well as a bunch of managers who are trying to build a company. And many of your experiences resonate with us. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, your journey, and being so generous with your thoughts on so many different subjects. I will now request Dr. Chaudhary to take over. I think we're doing all right on time. Doc, are we all right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, great. So if you have questions from our wonderful audience, please go for it. Thank you,
Yes.
Ajay.
So your questions will continue for a few more minutes, Ajay. And thank you so much once again, Ajay and Anish. And we do have quite a lot of questions, but then given the time, maybe we'll take a few questions with your permission, Ajay.
Yes, sure, sure.
Great. Uh, this is the question from Mr. Vinod Rath, and his question is, Mr. Ajay, curious to know how you dealt with non-performance.
Non-performance. Well, I personally believe that, non-performance is a function of two or three things. One is either the person is not clear what they have to deliver, or they don't know how to do it. They need some starting. Most of the time, it's a starting problem. They don't know how do I break it up? What is my first steps? Because once they start off, then they get along. Or thirdly, they may not have the resources to deliver. Maybe they're just stretched. They need. So one has to really look at non-performance not from an individual trait as much as an outcome of multiple things. And of course, the biggest of it all could be that their motivation is limited due to various reasons. It could be personal life, it could be health, it could be something to do with the culture and environment. So, if you think of each of these things as clarity of what you have to achieve, how you need to achieve, do you have the resources? All these are A plus B plus C, and then multiplied by motivation. That's something which I learned from Professor T.V. Rao, who's a guru in performance management. So if we can take on any of these and see what will enable them to perform, I think that's the way I would think of dealing with non-performance, because I don't believe any person who has all of these can be a non-performer, or has in some measure. So it's really finding the right person or the right role or the right environment or the right guidance. But sometimes it doesn't work. You have to then ask the person if they're excited about what they want, what they're doing here, or they feel their destiny is somewhere else. So that's a different kind of conversation.
Ajay, I think it's a great honor that we have Professor Tivira also amongst today's audience.
Yeah, I'm so glad. I'm honored that he's there.
And we have the next question from Mr. Vijay Bahadur Singh, Ajay, and his question is, Mr. Ajay, could you share your views on being associated with one group for more than 3 decades? Something one doesn't get to see anymore. What has changed over the years that people don't stay long with one company?
I don't know what what are the motivations. So okay, let me put it this way: there will be times when you feel you want to move on. Okay, and very often it's a push factor with most people. Sometimes it could be a pull factor of something attractive that comes, and you really want, that's your calling, or that's really exciting you. But 70-80% of the times it's people not finding fulfillment in what they do here. Now, it could be for various reasons. One of the philosophies I have believed in is that, listen, when there's a challenge, there's a problem. It could be with your work situation, it could be with your boss, it could be with your business, it could be with anything, it could be with yourself, for all you know. Okay. There is no point in escaping from it. You will find it somewhere else in slightly multiplied, with a little more challenge thrown, because life wants you to overcome some challenge by learning something new and overcoming it. So very often people jump because they feel they want to run away. And some other times people jump because they are in a hurry. They want to vertically move. Whereas in my mind, it's not about vertical growth. Vertical growth is an outcome of several experiences. So it's not horizontal or vertical. It's every experience is a learning experience. And you think of it as a spiral. Eventually there is growth. And what may seem lateral may not be lateral. Actually, it is a spiral. And therefore, that's how we grow. So I think these are the two main reasons why people jump. Either they are push or they want rapid growth. And I don't know. I think there's no point in getting there at 40 and then at 45 retiring and then not knowing what to do next. Maybe you can do a startup after that. But I believe it's okay. One has to be patient. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Absolutely. And this is a question from Mr. Asmuk Panchal. And his question is, at present era, young students are not showing up leadership quality. They won't sit on the second bench and follow someone. They're not coming up or building self-confidence. What could be the matter with this generation?
I first of all, I don't think you can classify a whole generation. It's about individuals. I think very often a younger group is prone to distraction because of the multiple screens and lives they lead. They may be gaming in the night and they may be on social media in parallel, and some they're multitaskers. So it could be that they're just distracted. And one of the simple suggestions I have for a lot of Gen Z folk is, you may be having many pursuits, but at any given point in time, if you can stay true to what you're doing and be in the moment, don't worry about missing out something which is happening on the side. Don't worry about, what you'll do tomorrow, what you'll do later. Right now, this is what you're doing. Give it your best, and if we are able to get people to stay in the present moment, there's a lot of unlocking that can happen. But mostly it is distraction and FOMO, which may be operational with a youngster. And very often, if you're just able to give them that input. I have a 19-year-old son, and he's pursuing engineering. I know that he's into many things, but one of the most important conversations we have is, okay, so if it's football, how did it go? Were you there? Were you in the moment, or were you thinking about something else? Or if it is studies, or if it is something else, how can you bring all these together and have a really fulfilling activity around you, a rich, fulfilling activity? I don't know if
Thank
I've
you.
answered the question, but I've used that to say what I had to say.
Absolutely. With your permission, Ajay, now we have just hit 7 o'clock. And with your permission, I'll just take two more questions if that's
Sure,
okay
sure.
with you.
We can
Okay.
take another 5-7 minutes and then we can wind up.
Sure. So this is a question from Komandori Sanjana, and her question is, how has the diversification of Tanishq into other jewelry brands like Carrot Lane and Mia been?
Oh, it's been wonderful. I think, see, the India is a large country and there are many segments. So it's important that we are able to, fulfill different need states with different consumer profiles, etc. I think both Carrot Lane and Mia and even Zoya at the luxury end are doing very well. Um, Both Carrot Lane and Mia in a way target a younger audience, much more everyday wear jewelry. Um, they are certainly the adornment types and not the investment oriented gold jewelry buyer, not traditional at all. So it's been very good, and both these brands are progressing at a very rapid pace, as is Zoya, which is a luxury end. It's important that each of these brands is given the freedom to run it in the manner in which they have to run, as opposed to tying them down with the conventional approach. So I think nurturing new brands is something requires a certain ambidextrous skill of managing a large business and then allowing the smaller brands to nurture themselves with freedom.
And this is a question from Mr. Pulak Adak. And his question is, what should be the leader's focus on his career? Is it money, name, recognition, or goal achievement?
I think any professional should focus on learning. When you focus on learning, the rest of them will follow. And if you're able to learn to be a good manager, first of all, you learn to be a good functional expert or build credibility. So personal excellence. It's important that whatever we take it up with full energy and learn. And any new role, whether it is going from individual contributor to a manager or manager to a manager of managers or to a leader of a large team, it, it requires different skill sets. So one is the functional skill sets and the business knowledge you need to learn. The other is how do I manage people and how do I manage large teams? And each of them require a lot of learning. And I'm not saying this because I'm on a TimesPro webinar, but because this is what I genuinely believe in. So if you are focused on learning, growth will follow, income will follow, opportunities will follow. So I would think it's always important to focus on what you enjoy doing and what you will learn. The rest will automatically come. You must trust that.
Maybe last but one question for today evening, Ajay, with your permission. This is from this is from Mr. Amit Mishra. Mr. Ajay, I'm in middle management, but passionate to move up in top management. What would you suggest for me?
It's a very generic question, and it's so specific to where you are and what roles you're doing. I think the difference between middle management and top management is, as a senior management professional, you stop worrying about yourself and you start thinking about your team. This is a very interesting conversation which I had with a very senior leader whom I was traveling with. And, my conversation with him was exactly this. What should I do next? How should I grow? What should I do? He said, you are doing well. I'm sure you'll do very well. Now you don't see yourself as middle management. Think of yourself as senior management. And your entire energy should be focused on how do I develop my team and how do I watch out for them? How do I ensure they grow? And that's the mindset of a senior manager or a top management. You think about your team. You think about your partners, you think about external stakeholders. You don't think so much about yourself. You learn, but you don't think about your progress. It will follow. That's a very broad, generic answer I can give, but I'm sure there are specific answers for this gentleman.
Okay. And the last question for today evening is from Meena. And her question is, what if the management supports the toxic bosses?
Well, what happens is when management supports certain people because they have demonstrated maybe years of loyalty, years of contribution, maybe they bring certain expertise to the table, which we may take it for granted. We are only seeing one aspect of that boss, which is seemingly toxic. Maybe that boss is struggling to manage a team. Maybe that boss is struggling to bring the softer skills of people and empathy, and maybe has got the harder skills. So first of all, recognize that everything is not black or white. Every boss is a human being and has some positives and negatives. So I would think it's important that we also help our bosses to get out of their pattern if we can, maybe individually or collectively. But if not, I think if it becomes too difficult, then it's also okay. In many organizations, there are things like skip level discussions, etc. And you can reach out and share your perspective in a certain positive manner. Never paint your boss in a negative light. Always demonstrate that what is the impact it is having on a particular behavior, maybe impacting you as an individual. So don't classify the boss as toxic or otherwise. It is a particular behavior which is resulting in a particular outcome. And if you're able to show that if there's an opportunity for you to maybe work under a different leader, or maybe you can get some influence to change the boss in some form, or influence the boss to modify their behavior, many a times it works. Having tried all that, and if it still doesn't work, I guess you should make your choices and decide not to be part of that situation if it's not changing and it's taking away your energy and your motivation. But that's the last resort, I would say.
Thank you so much, Ajay, and especially for giving us this honor of hosting you for this 50th Leadership Leaves lecture alongside Anish Srikrishna. But it's absolute honor and pleasure to have you for this, especially for this topic, Crucibles of Leadership. And I'm sure everybody in the audience have gained tremendously from your illustrious career and also the kind of leadership that you have shown over the years. And it's definitely quite daunting for someone to internalize everything that is said in this session. But nevertheless, I'm sure everybody is walking out of this session with great insights about not just managing themselves, but also managing others. Thank you so much from all of us at TimesPro and from all of our learners as well, Ajay. And look forward to having you for more sessions in the near future.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Chaudhary, and thank you, Mr. Anish. Absolute pleasure, and thank you to the audience. It was very nice being there, and I'm seeing all the comments and the questions. Thank you, and thanks TimesPro for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
God bless. Take care.